Hello everyone, welcome to Unacademy and we are here back with a session on the daily news analysis for 5th of October 2021 and this is presented by me Ajay Muchakurthi and today we have some interesting topics coming up. In yesterday's news, I mean to say whatever the day happenings which have happened that have been published in the newspaper today are really interesting. One of the most important one with respect to the economical situation, with respect to a kind of papers leakage that has happened, which is popularly called as Panama Papers leakage. That would be one of the very important topic that we'll be taking up for the discussion. Apart from that, who are those particular people who have been awarded with the Nobel Prize in the field of medicine for 2021? That would be other topic that we'll be taking up for the discussion. And we have many such topics lined up for the discussion today. And before we start the session of the day, I just want to let you know about the toppers whom we have got from the UPSC CSE 2020. Right, we have got a lot of people who have been the toppers of this particular 2020, and we have created the various batch courses for the year 21, 22 as well as 2023 also. So which would be started on 6th of October, that is from tomorrow. And yes, the top educators are taking the sessions on various aspects of these, and that will help you clear the examination. And you can see about what different courses are being taken up by educators. You could look into those particular things which could be like English, Hindi as well as bilingual things too, right? So let's not get into too much of these things right now because we already have been discussing this. And yeah, just one thing before we go is that every Sunday you would be having a combat which would be offering you a scholarship depending upon your rank, and that would help you get the Unacademy Plus subscription at a much discounted price. And what you have to do is just use the code Ajay IAS 10 to get a discount of 10% on the Unacademy Plus subscription. Okay, so let's start the topic first. Number one, so it is now very much we have seen the concept of Panama Papers earlier, isn't it? But since yesterday something was making a lot of news, which is called as Pandora Papers. The word looks interesting, and now the most interesting thing in that is about the people who have been taken into consideration for the Pandora Papers, whose names have been come out. That is going to be an interesting thing. Now, before we start the discussion of the day, that we know generally that in India we have a right to form the trust, right? Everyone has a right to form a trust. Similarly, the Pandora Papers talks about at least 380 different persons of Indian nationality, and they have been accused of storing a huge amount of these particular funds in other countries of the world. About 11.9 million files have been leaked from 14 different kind of companies, which they say that these particular files have talked about 29,000 off the shelf companies. There are companies which have been created out of these particular countries where these people have been residing. There are some trusts which have been created. The major purpose is, according to these papers, they say it is to evade the taxes, or it could be one such kind of thing to ensure that the property be transferred to the next generations without any kind of difficulty by diverting the taxes. And some people have been stating here that it could be an initiation for what do you call it as very specifically with respect to money laundering and all. And these companies have been found in different countries like Singapore, New Zealand, US and whatnot, in different kind of places of the world. So what this document says is, this talks about the ownership of the assets. So there are some particular Indian whose name, for example, and they say that this Indian has some assets which have been placed in a private offshore trust, which means there is a trust that has been created, that's a private one, and which is not present in India. And they have been making some kind of investments like cash, shareholding, real estate properties. All these kind of things have been placed in various parts of the world according to them. But what these particular papers have revealed to us, what these papers have revealed is how some rich people, famous people, and some notorious people who are already been under the network of investigating agencies, right, where they have been looking after possible tax evasion, looking at these kind of things, what they are saying is they've created a multi-layered trust. They've created a multi-layered trust in such a way that they won't be traced back that easily. Where these people have kept these particular trust in those countries which are regulated very less and they have a very huge and very tight secrecy laws. Some of these trusts could be genuine, some of these may not be genuine. But once you go through these kind of papers, there are two things that we could get here. Number one is, why they have done this is to hide their real identity. And why do you have to hide your real identity? The major reason is because you don't want yourself to be identified with that particular offshore assets. So what happens, the tax authorities cannot reach them. So first one is to hide their identity. Number two is to safeguard the investments, like whatever the cash, the shareholdings, real estate, art, aircrafts, yachts, whatever are there. So these could be safeguarded from the creditors and law enforcers. For example, today someone has taken a loan and they evaded this and went, left the country of India. So there they can still live happily because these have been hidden. So this is another kind of possibility what these papers will reveal about. There are two possibilities. Number one is about to hide their identity so that there would be no direct connection between them. Number two is to safeguard the investments which they have actually been made. Now you may ask me, sir, what you are talking about right now is Pandora Papers. And you may also ask me, sir, earlier we have heard about Panama Papers. We have heard about Paradise Papers. Now why and how this is different? The most important fact here when it comes to the Panama Papers and Paradise Papers is that they have completely been focused on some entities which have been set up by the individual or a corporate. Okay, so the Panama and Paradise Papers is about some kind of entities which have created outside a country, it by an individual or a corporate. But what this Pandora Papers talks is a completely different thing. So what they say is how the businesses have created a new normal, how the business have created a new normal after the countries have been forced to tighten the screws on such offshore entities with rising concerns of money laundering, terror financing and tax evasion. So the most important point here is some corporates and individuals and some high net individuals whoever are there, they have been using the concept of the trust in such a way that they have been created that they won't be able to be traced back, and ultimately that could be completely be an initiation for a money laundering, tax evasion or terror financing. Anything could be possible, but they say it's a kind of completely different thing that has been created by them compared to what we actually have seen. Now the trusts can be set up in the tax havens which we know, like Samoa, Belize, Panama, British Virgin Islands, or it could be in Singapore, it could be in New Zealand. They also give less taxes, or even in South Dakota in United States of America. Any of these things could be possible. Now someone may ask me, sir, what is a trust? A trust is nothing but it's a kind of arrangement that has been created where there will be a person who will be called as trustee. So this trustee will take care of all the assets of that particular trust. So irrespective of who the members of the trust, who the members of the organization, but the trustee will take care of them. So on behalf of these particular assets of the trust, the trustee will take care of it. So generally, for the estate planning, dealing with that particular estate planning, or the succession the next time who is supposed to get this particular property. In this kind of cases, this is given. For example, if you know about it, let's say a will has been written by a grandfather to a particular grandson. So, but the grandson is a minor. So, what we do generally, we will appoint a guardian where the guardian has to take care of this particular property till the grandson becomes major, isn't it? So, this is something generally done. So, this is a similar kind of concept, but you create a separate trust for that, and the guardian here is replaced with a trustee. Now, what happens here is different kind of financial assets, shareholdings, or the real estate property, whatever is there, all of these could be brought together. And in a trust, there are three important people. Number one, we call it as settlor. Number two is a trustee. And number three is a one whom we call it as a beneficiary. There are three important people we do have. Number one is a settlor, number two is a trustee, and number three is a beneficiary. And who is a settlor? A settlor is one such kind of person who will either set up, create, or author a trust. So he is the major person here. And the trustee is the one he will hold the assets for the benefit of others. So if the settlor is naming, for example, if the settlor is a major owner, he says a person A has to get it. So for the person A, like what happens now, a person B could be made as a trustee. So he has to ensure that the person or any group of people could be benefit from that. He would be focusing on that. And lastly, we have a person whom we call as a beneficiary too. So ultimately, to whom this would be going. And now, compared to a trust and other kind of guardians and all, a guardian could be a legal entity, but a trust is not. Trust is not a legal entity. So, its legal nature that we are talking about, the trust, comes from the trustee only. Sometimes a settlor, whoever are there, they will appoint a protector, and this protector will have a powers to supervise the trustee and even remove the trustee and appoint a new one also. This is a very, very, very important thing. So I told you three people first: settlor, trustee, and the beneficiary. Sometimes the settlor, the main owner, can also appoint someone as a protector also, and this protector was given such kind of power that he can completely supervise the trustee and even remove the trustee and bring a new trustee also. That is also possible through this. Now you may ask me, sir, okay, we have learnt about the trust. We have known what is a trust now. What are the people involved here? But now, to set up a trust in India or outside India, is it illegal? Answer is absolutely not. Because we have an act called Indian Trust Act of 1882. It gives some kind of legal basis to what you call it as a concept of trust. For the concept of trust, it gives some legal basis. And within India, we do not see a trust as a legal entity, but we see there is an obligation on a person. Now, we have a person called a trustee who is under a trust, right? So, there is an obligation on this particular trustee who will be focusing on management of the assets, and to whom this has to be given. Now, if that's completely legal, what is this investigation of Pandora Papers? So the point is, if someone is setting up a trust, it could be legitimate or illegitimate. We are not saying that it's completely illegitimate. There are some people who could set up a trust for legitimate reasons also. And some of them could also set up for illegitimate reasons too. For example, let's say there is a person called A. Okay? I'm sorry. Yeah. This person has 4 children called B, C, D, and E. So what this person A has done is, he has a company, or he has some shares of a company. Now while he is allotting the shares to 4 siblings, now he may put a condition to that. If a sibling, every sibling can get a dividend from the shares, and it's possible. Okay, that's possible. But now when you mention these people, like they can claim the ownership of the shares also, but they cannot sell their shares. Now the point to be remembered, these siblings who got the shares, they cannot sell their shares without offering them to any of their siblings. Got my point? Let's say there is a person C wants to sell their shares. He cannot sell their shares to anyone without offering them to B, D and E. In B, D and E, first he has to show them an offer, and if they refuse, then they have a possibility. But why is this important? The major reason is because the company should not go into the hands of outside people. That is one of the reasons why people often do ensure the ownership should be there with the family. That is something why they come across with this kind of condition too. Now, when you talk about the trust, so trusts are used by some people as some kind of secret vehicles where they would be hiding the income what they have got. This is something which is done. But why are you setting up the trust in the overseas? So when you set up these kind of trust in the overseas, there is a lot of secrecy. There is a lot of secrecy. There is stringent privacy laws, and a lot more things are there in this particular case. Okay, so why people may set up some trust and all, we do have some kind of reasons for that. Like there is some to maintain a kind of degree of separation. Like they can come across with this kind of things, so that we will have a very specific separation among the things. Like more secrecy, avoiding the taxes. Estate duty is something which was there earlier in India, to prevent that, if by chance if that comes up again, to prevent that. Like in a capital controlled economy, they also want to take care of some kind of flexibility, and the NRIs is the other biggest problem. At any point of time, there are a lot of people have been identified in this. If you have heard about it, like many people, including very very famous cricketers and all, many people have been named under the Pandora Papers. So this is definitely going to be one of the very important news in the next few more days. We just have to see what would be the development of that. Okay, so that is about the Pandora Papers and what's there. And now the Nobel has been started for the year 2021. So Nobel Prize for the year 2021 have been started. And now when you talk about it, for the field of medicine, that has been announced already. For the field of medicine, the Nobel Prize has been announced to two people. One is David Julius, and other one is Adam Patapointian. So what these people have done, in simple terms I'll tell you. For example, if you are having a chili pepper, so what happens now, you would feel some kind of irritation, or you would feel some kind of we would say some kind of stimulation would be there. Oh my god, this tastes very different, that sort of things. When we touch something cold, now what happens, our skin will respond. So these people have done a kind of research on this only. As I told you, there are two people, David Julius and Adam Patapoutian. And Dr. Julius, what he has done is, he studied different compounds in chili peppers and a spider venom. Through this, he wanted to understand how our bodies will sense the heat and the chemical irritants. The most important thing is, when a person is dealing with some kind of pain and all, so what happens here is that how our body is going to be responding to this. That's going to be important. So Dr. Julius has focused on chili peppers and spider venom to know about how our body is responding, and the other Dr. Patapoutian has focused on some different kind of sensors that we have in our skin and the internal organs. They wanted to identify what is the method and how are they going to focus on how they are responding to cold and other different kind of stimulations too. So what the Nobel Prize committee has announced is, the discoveries which have been done by these people have made us understand how heat, cold or mechanical force can initiate some kind of nerve impulse. For example, suddenly if something is cold, immediately when you touch it, you will remove it, right? there is some kind of sensors that are present in the skin. So their work is specifically talking about it. So what have they finally identified? So just give me 1 minute, please. So what have they identified? It was in the year 1997, Dr. Julius, along with his team, has published a paper. And here, he was very specifically focusing on, what do you call it, as capsaicin. Capsaicin is nothing but it's a chemical compound that is present in the chili peppers. So how it is causing a burning sensation. So for this to study, they've created a huge library of the DNA fragments. They have taken up the entire DNA fragments of a particular area. They've started working on that to know what are the genes causing it, and finally they have discovered a kind of receptor of capsaicin, and they have named it as TRPV1. TRPV1. So what happens here with the different kind of temperatures, be it cold, be it hot, what happens here is that your body would respond. So that's a kind of stimulation that you would be having. So this kind of release, they stated, independently of one another, both these particular people, David Julius and Adam Patapoutian, identified another new receptor called as TRPM8. So that is activated by the cold. So it's something that it could take to a greater height tomorrow, about how one particular person is wounded, about how a pain and temperature sensing neurons are present, how they are specifically focusing on. So they say that this could be a game changing thing, because it's about the kind of stimulation that our body is providing. So that is about this particular Nobel Prize winners for the year 2021. Okay. So just give me 1 minute, please. 1 minute. Chalo. Moving on to the next one. The Forest Rights Act, or the forest conservation. Now, whenever you talk about the forest, the major thing that we need to focus is on conservation of the forest. But unfortunately, what is happening in the recent past is that the way we are dealing with the forest, I mean to say that the way you are focusing on them and how it is not focusing on conservation but more on destruction. This is unfortunate thing. So recently the government has proposed absolving the agencies involved in national security projects and infrastructure projects from obtaining the prior forest clearance from the center. They have brought such kind of amendments to the Forest Conservation Act in such a way that those particular organizations which are going on to come up with, if I want to take up any kind of project, in a particular area, generally what we need is a prior forest clearance is very important. But now the government is proposing that if that project is of national security or if that is of border infrastructure, they don't have to take the prior forest clearance anymore. It is something, an amendment is proposed under the Forest Conservation Act. This Forest Conservation Act for the first time was created in the year 1980 and it was amended in the year 1988 later on. And now the amendment has ensured that we need to take this kind of permission. So what you are going to do now with these kind of changes which you are proposing, that if that is a kind of security related thing, you don't need an approval. So this is something which you are going to rationalize a lot of forest laws. And this document has been kept open for the public for 15 days. And after that it will be taken to the cabinet. Once that is approved, and it will be sent to the parliament. And now They also say that they would exempt the land acquired before 1980. That is, before the Forest Conservation Act came into existence. They would exempt such kind of project also. Would be exempted, so they don't have to take permission, especially railways and all. So there are many people who would be opposing about how that is taking, but as of now, the land holding agency, be it the railways, be it National Highways Authority of India, or be it Public Works Department, they have to take an approval under the act, and they have to pay the compensatory levies, like what is the net present value, what is the compensatory afforestation things. All these have to be paid by them. If they have taken the forest for non-forest purposes, it is mandatory. But now they are making a lot of changes. And even the Environment Ministry has even proposed to bring up a clause in such a way that the offences which have been modified here with a simple imprisonment for a period which can go up to 1 year, if there is anyone violating them, imprisonment of 1 year, and it would be a cognizable and it would be non-bailable. So they would also propose provisions for penal compensation to make good for the damage that has already been done to. And they also propose removing the zoos, safaris, forest training infrastructures from the non-forestry activities. So which means they would be going forward considered as a forestry activities only. Right now, what they have done is, the money whatever is collected as part of compensatory cess can be spent only towards forest conservation purposes. So now this is a kind of amendment that has been brought up. So ultimately the government says, this is what we are going to liberalize some kind of norm. So definitely that could be opposed by various sections, but we just have to wait and see about what is it going to happen right now in this particular case. Okay, so that's about the changes proposed by the government to the Forest Conservation Act. So just give me 1 minute. So, and we are left with, okay, around yes, around 4 to 5 topics we do have. Now it's about the issue that is going on right now in the country. The most burning issue is about a place called Lakhimpur Kheri in the state of UP. And the Supreme Court, while listening to an appeal that has come, has criticized the farmers' organizations. And the reason why the Supreme Court is criticizing and angry on the farmers' organization is very simple. There is a reason about why farmers are actually protesting. There's no doubt there is a reason. What the reason is that it's about the central government which has brought the 3 new farm laws. They were not happy with that. Now looking after what is happening, the kind of agitation that the people have been doing, where 8 people have been killed already. Now no one would be ready to take the responsibility, isn't it? Will the farmer group come and take the responsibility? Will the government come and take the responsibility? Nothing would happen. If there is anything is happening, be it a death, be it a loss to a property, or be it damage, no one would take the responsibility. And without any doubt, the government from the side of Attorney General says it's untoward incident. And he stated that court should make it clear that the protest should not continue. Because right now there has already been challenged in the Supreme Court, and he stated very clearly there should not be any more protest, says this particular people. Now, what the judges ask is also a logic. Because right now is the central government already implementing the farm laws? And if that is a question, the answer is no. Because the matter is already sub judice. It's already in the court. So why are the protests still going on when the laws have been temporarily kept on hold? That's the first question that the judges have asked. The act has already been stayed. The government stated it will not implement it. Then what is the reason why are you following with the protest? Says the judges to the farmers' organization. The point they make it very clear. The government is bound by the laws passed by the parliament. Once you come to the court, that could also be opposed. But the court, in its order, has decided to frame some legal questions in the issue. And they stated It would first decide whether the right to protest was an absolute right or not. Just because you have some concern, yes, you have a right to protest. But the also problem we also have is that they want to go and sit on a dharna, it's fine. But during this particular protest, what they have been making, there have been some kind of situations. There have been some kind of situations where the entire city has been stuck. There have been blocked up highways. So they say this is not one way how you do the protest peacefully. If you have taken the permission of citizens who are living nearby, no, that is not there too. There is a right to protest, there is no one opposing it. But there is also a right to use roads and to ensure a free movement. And the matter you have already brought before the court. So why do you still want to continue the process, says the Supreme Court? So this is right now a kind of major issue that we have heard. So we just have to wait and see what will be the decision, by the former organizations with respect to this. Yeah. Okay. So that is another topic we have. Now with respect to it, right now the Foreign Secretary of India, the Foreign Secretary of India is in is on a visit to Sri Lanka, and during this he is meeting a different sections of people. And in that, there is one particular thing that India has been requesting and asking is about implementation of 13th Amendment to the Constitution of Sri Lanka. Now someone will ask you what is 13th Amendment when it comes to Sri Lanka. The point when it comes to 13th Amendment is very simple. Firstly, they will conduct, they will have a provincial councils. Provincial councils will be there. They have to conduct the polls for them. And number two, they will also recognize Sinhala and Tamil as the official language. This is something which has been stated. Now, India has urged to Sri Lanka to hold elections to provincial councils without any delay. And now, India also made very clear that we will not appreciate any third party presence, be it in the regions which are majorly dominated by the Tamil people, be it in north or east. Because right now India has kept a lot of money, especially in those regions where we have a huge amount of Tamil people. So the Foreign Secretary makes it very clear that there is very important that we need to implement them, conduct the polls, and also implement the 13th Amendment. So earlier, some people have stated we have to repeal this from the government, and we also have to abolish the provincial council system. But the 5-year term of the provincial council, which has brought up in the Indo-Lanka Accord of 1987, so it was expired in 2018, and there's nothing happened since then. So they have been waiting for this kind of things. That's one point we have. Okay, and now with respect to the deaths of the COVID, the government stated we are ready to give an ex gratia amount of 50,000 rupees per death. And the Supreme Court stated to the state governments that the state government should not deny the ex gratia of 50,000 to the families of persons who died of COVID-19 just because that there is not mention of virus as a cause of death in their death certificate. They make it very, very clear, just because there is no mention of virus as a reason for the death of the person, you cannot reject the COVID-19 ex gratia. So they stated that right now the amount is being given from the SDRF. So the district disaster management authorities will be making this particular payments, and they said that whatever the claims that are there, that must be settled within 30 days of submission of documents too. And district level committees would also look into complaints if there is any about the death and amendment documents and all. So they should also have access to health hospital records and all. This is something which they have stated. Now, so a drone based vaccine delivery model has been very recently launched by the Union Health Minister, especially in the Northeast, that they have started as iDrone. So for the first time, a Make in India drone has been used to transport COVID vaccine with a distance of 15 kilometers in just 12 to 15 minutes. That's amazing, isn't it? 15 kilometers you have taken within 12 to 15 minutes from a place called Bishnupur District Hospital in Manipur to Loktak Lake. That is something which has been done. So about 10 beneficiaries will receive the first dose and 8 beneficiaries will receive the second dose. That is something that has been done, because in these kind of areas where the geography is not so proper, when there is a hard to reach terrain, this drones could be of some great option this year. And last but not least is about it. For a common man in a country, what people always want is their own house, isn't it? And there are some people who have paid a lot of amount, but despite that they are not getting this particular houses being delivered by the concern, builder. So Supreme Court now has reached out in such a way that they would like to protect the home buyers from exploitation by the builders who are delaying the transfer of possession and who are redrafting the delivery schedules. So they stated very clearly that there is no uniform model. There is no uniform model right now we have in a country with respect to these kind of agreements. So there is a need that we need to bring up this particular thing. They said RERA Act is not properly implemented too. We need a model builder buyer agreement, a model agent buyer agreement, so that this delays should not be happening anymore. So this is something which has been announced by the court. So that is all about the topics we have for the day. So with this we'll be ending the session for now. Okay, and I'll be back tomorrow at 6th October at the same time 11:30 a.m. We'll be back. Okay, so till then everyone, take care, have a great day, and guys, please do use the code Ajay IAS 10 to take the Unacademy Plus subscription so that you'll be able to get a discount of 10%. Right? Thank you. Have a great day.